The story that I wanted to tell this morning is based on what Alex said earlier. We've been working for some years to get to Eastern Europe, and also understanding that this is a new field for many. So it's also a story about patience, because it has taken some time for me to establish a formal strategy and some formal policies and procedures in my organization. And that is based on many different conditions. One is that I've been with the company for 26 years, so many of the things that I do, just ask Henning. Don't need a strategy, we don't need policy. And the other thing is that I have very gray hair, so in very short time I shall be leaving, and they want to empty my head. So over time we have established strategy, and we have established policies and procedures, and I'm going to talk about how that came about. Few words about the organization. I work in a company called A.P. Møller Holding. A.P. Møller Holding is the investment company of the A.P. Møller Foundation, and A.P. Møller Holding owns and operates a number of businesses in various industries. We have 4 themes. One is global trade, one is the energy transition, circularity, and demographic change, which is another way of saying we are investing in healthcare industries. I will invite you to use 5 minutes on apmoller.com. When we are done, put away your phones now, thank you, and read a little bit more about the organization and our portfolio companies. But as said, a little bit about the strategy, a little bit about how it came about, and the resulting policies and procedures. When we sat down, what is now nearly 10 years ago, and thought about what to do when we want to write a strategy. At that time I had a boss who had a McKinsey background, no offense. So she had some ideas of how to approach this way of doing. And first of all, the idea was to find out what is the regulatory environment for the group of companies that we're in. So that's a big task, to finding out which laws and regulations around the world could impact the thing that we're doing. Also, A.P. Møller as a group is a very large company in a very small country, so we have some certain attention on us, so there are societal expectations. We think that companies as such are part of the societal documentation, so we echo some of the expectations shown from the society, but we also realize that we need to set up some boundaries. And then there's the professional angle. What is actually best practice in this? This group of people is a big inspiration for setting that bar very high, but also what is our own perception of the reality within the company? What should we do? What is actually possible? And what will that result in? As said, I've been with the company for many years. The founding family, who are still represented in the ownership, they have expectations. They didn't tell me about it, but I knew what the expectations could be. What were the company expectations? Need to find a level on where to sit with this strategy. And then, very importantly, what is your own self-perception of your role in the company? What is your own self-perception of the professional level that this should be at? That could be things that drag in the other direction in comparison, for example, with the societal expectations. Our role in the organization, we are part of the communication department, and it is really about administering the reputation and helping that we are protecting our name, that we still have a good name based on also our heritage. This is the notepad that I made in that discussion about what should be included in the strategy, and we found out that there were 4 headlines: retention policy, archives management, research and documentation, and then communication, and which parts of our daily activities went into this. So all these things that are in the smaller circles were things that we were already doing, that you are already doing in your organization. There's nothing new in it. It's a matter of having them structured in a way where they become manageable. That resulted in what is our purpose. We are here to document the company development over time, and practically that results in using that knowledge, that experience to ensure consistent and factual communication. That's very important when you work with journalists. They seem to make stories out of everything. We are here to ensure that it is actually factually based. We also understand from our organization, or my organization, that history is important, history is interesting, but it's even more interesting if we can combine it with something that is being communicated today. So whenever I hear about in 2 months' time we will have this and that event, I think about how can we find something in the archives that can link to that, and then propose a story into that general communication effort about this project. And that is it's quite successful. Our communication department says, yeah, thank you very much. We'll use that as well. Create a short story, put it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I've been told that I'm on TikTok. I don't have that myself, but I see that as a positive. So we appear in many different places because of this initiative coming from us. And again, we are here to build trust in our brand, in our name, in the business going forward. And one of our core values in the AP Model Group is exactly our name. We need to protect our name so that we can basically come back and knock on the door with our customers and ask for more business the next day. Now, all of this have resulted in a formal strategy that also tells us what are the actual minimum requirements to run such an operation. And we have divided that into these 4 brackets. First of all, we need a retention policy. So we need to tell the organization what kind of information do we need to actually be able to document the history over time. When we collect all these things from the companies and activities, we need a proper archive to run them. And we need to have an efficient archive. We need to run that archive in a professional way. That's another set of requirements and competencies that we need in the organization. Thirdly, we need the ability to do research so we can actually open a box and understand what's in the box, put it together with other things, and then lastly, to communicate it. About a year ago, a little more than a year ago, we had a bit of a crisis. My colleague and I sat down and said, we actually use 90% of our time in Section D, and only about 10% at the rest, which, for example, meant that we claimed that we know more about the first 100 years of our history and very little about the last 20 years. So we presented that crisis to the management, and we said we need to focus on A, B, and C rather than D, so we or balance our time a little bit better, which has resulted in projects where we are right now writing about what has actually happened to the group over the past 20 years, which is a good thing, of course. But sometimes you need to reevaluate, is this running okay, or do we need to do things? Because we actually got blinded a little bit by success in Section D, because all those posts on LinkedIn and so on, they received very high numbers, so more and more was required from us, and we happily said, yes, we'll do that, of course, but that meant that we forgot to do A, B, and C. We have straightened that out a little bit. This sculpture is part of the corporate museum in AP Møller. It's a sculpture showing all the companies that have been started in the group over time. So every stick represents an activity starting in 1886, going up until today. And It was actually in the beginning called the McKinsey model. Somebody thought that McKinsey invented this. It was actually me who did it. But I'm very proud of that, Paul. So I go under the name, the McKinsey model. But it's a good illustration of the scope of what we have to work with. So it is time-wise from the 1880s and even before, because we have some family-related records from there, but also the complexity with all these different companies in different activities over time. It's not only shipping, it's not only manufacturing, it's many different things. And that is the scope of the work that we need to put into those 4 brackets with retention policy, archives management, and research and communication. Now, in terms of policies, the heritage policy, as I have dubbed it, is the overall policy that explains what is our scope, how do we do it, and who owns the policy. And luckily, we have top management approval on this, so the family has stepped in and said, yes, this is important, we support this, which is a huge hammer in our organization to come with a portfolio company and say, we need this information. Yeah, but, well, we do need this information. But very briefly, just described in the heritage policy, what is our mandate in terms of heritage communication and retention. We have a corporate approach, so we are not diving into the individual businesses. We are a group with about 140,000 people working for us, so we would have no chance of diving into all the details. We describe which records we find important from the individual companies to describe the company development over time. So it's a very high-level collection of papers, but we are, or information, data, we are focusing on exactly being able to show the development over time. We have a lot of researchers who ask for admission to our archives. Our archives are considered private, so they are not open to the public as such. But in individual instances, we do open up and we assist researchers if we find the project viable. This is one of the details where I have set up a certain way of doing this. The way that I communicate with the scholar has now been put into to writing, so that anybody basically can take that procedure and say, this is how we want it done. These are the checks and balances that needs to be established before we allow access to not the archives, but to certain parts of the archives. But it is now described. I think that actually it felt very good when this was put down on paper, because then it was also accepted that the way that I did it was okay. I never really asked anybody whether it was a good idea to do it this way. We just did it, and it has gone well so far, and continues to do so, of course. Also, formalizing the transfer of materials from the portfolio companies, that's a relatively new thing, because we are diving a little bit deeper into some of the newer companies that we have done until now. So this will be a communication thing. I will talk to legal in the individual companies, but now, again, I have things on paper, so I can more easily present it to them. What is it that I actually want from them? This is just my example of how to do this. It should be done individually, differently in each organization, but I do think that there are some learnings in just sitting down and considering what is your environment, what is the internal expectations, the societal expectations to the company in terms of having a proper policy that you can defend when asked, or that you can just use as a working tool in your daily work. I'll give you back 40 seconds of your time, and thank you very much.